All right, this is some eye candy. This is the bottom of the NC 173 radio. I want to tell you a story. Last week, I might have told you some stories about me falling in the mud. Uh, before the sun even come up, I shot over to Walmart, and it had just stopped raining. And there's this slope I have to come down, and it's a shortcut between Walmart and the back of the dollar store. And I hit the mud, and I slipped, and I grabbed the fence, and my one leg went out from under me, and then the second leg went out from under me. I had to pull myself onto the fence back through the mud to be able to stand up, and I had a hard time standing up. It's one of those things when you get older, uh, getting yourself back up once you fell is much harder, but I did it. And then another day, went to a yard sale, and they kept telling me the rain's coming, even though before I went to the yard sale, I checked the weather to make sure it's not going to rain. But after I got over there, it formed over us. I got soaking wet. I told you that story. So today, I went looking for DVDs, movie DVDs, and I did find one. Uh, a lot of people have DVDs for sale at yard sales. When Harry Met Sally. Okay, a lot of the movies they have I've seen, and they're not a movie you'll watch more than once. So I'm walking around, and I'm over in the Oaks. It's one of the better yard sales. It was really busy, and I know the people in there. I walk in that development almost every day of the week, or early in the morning. I know the people from there. I know the people from the yard sale. Sometimes I see people and hang out with them on Saturday. So I went over there, and before I went over there, I decided to cut one of my toenails. And when you get older, you have a hard time reaching your toes. And I might have pulled a muscle in my back, or one of the vertebrae got a little messed up. So I'm going over there, and before I even in that neighborhood, a woman come over, and she started waving to me and talking to me. She wanted to ask me questions, and she's like a home nurse. She comes in, and she'll come in and visit you and help you do housework. She'll take your blood pressure. And I told her the last time I met her that I didn't need that yet, not yet. So I stood there for a while talking to her. She was asking me about prices of the neighborhood rentals, different sections, and I know all that from people telling me. So I leave her, and my back's feeling a little funky, and I'm like, oh, and if I stand too long and talk to people, my feet swell. So that's why I cut the toenails. I got that already. I got on my sneakers just in case it rains because could be showers. I'm walking along. I cross the highway. I go into the neighborhood right away. First group selling. I haven't seen the guy in 6 years, and he recognized me right away. And I'm talking to him. And he goes, "Man, I haven't seen you." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's about 6 years." Since I told him I was walking with this guy, he didn't want to walk in that neighborhood because his drinking buddies were in there. Well, anyway, so I don't know if him for a while, and I said, "Let me do the rest of the yard sale." And I'm walking, and I'm meeting people I haven't seen in like 6 years. Uh, they're not out in the morning when I walk through there. They're not out on Saturday, but there they are on a yard sale, and I'm hanging out with them. I'm walking around, and I stayed too long, and I got up around, and there was like 20 yard sales. I got one movie. A lot of people have religious movies and religious music, and so I was looking for a movie that like when Harry Met Sally. Whenever that's on TV, I'll watch it again. It's a movie you can watch more than once. So I got that, and I'm walking around. I keep bumping into people I haven't seen, and the final guy that I'm talking to, I'm noticing my back is starting to spasm. And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, it's been good seeing you." I said, "I got to get out of here." I said, my back's doing something funky, and because I can walk for 6 hours, and I start coming out of the neighborhood, and I met the first guy I met that I hadn't seen. He was cleaning up. I said, what's going on?" He goes, he says, "You remember when you were just here a few hours ago?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "We were bombarded with people. Now there's nothing." I said, when I was on the other side of the neighborhood, it suddenly got quiet. And some of the people that yard sale, I know them from other yard sales. I said, you know, you're right. I've been stopping talking to people, and nobody's asking them the price of anything. It doesn't hate you, you know. You're just out there gabbing. I start walking back. I said goodbye to him. I start walking back, and I got like I'd say a mile to go, and the back's starting to spasm, and I'm starting to lean to the left, and I can't straighten up. I'm leaning to the left. I stop and I straighten myself out. As far as I walk, I start leaning to the left. It's getting real bad. Now I get to the street. It's South Oak Avenue or South Oak Street, whatever. And this car is going back and forth like it's a highway, and that's not what that road is. I'm going, I really need this, you know? And I step off the curb to make sure I can step off the curb because my back is really starting to go nuts. And the traffic, I don't know what happened in the area, but finally it broke. I didn't want to, with the back all messed up, I didn't want to try to cut in front of anybody that's going fast. So I get across the street, and I'm having trouble. It's really getting bad now. It's spasming, and there's a fence there, but the fence has those vinyl strips weaving through it. I go to put my hand in like to steady myself, and my fingers get caught. It goes in like a check valve. It goes in like or a dart. My finger goes in, and then when I pull my finger out, can't get my finger out. So anyway, I had to push the vinyl out of the way with my other hand, you know. And then I'm noticing the vertigo's kicking in. Whenever I have when the pollen's real high, which it's been very high, and I'm leaning another way. Now the liquid in the ear is tilted. It's starting to give me some vertigo. So I'm walking along and I'm trying to grab the fence as best I can. And I'm like, I can't do this. I got another half mile. So the state trooper's right there, and he comes out and he's looking at me, and I just flag him in. I just like come in here, and he's watching me grab the fence. I said, look. He gets out and he goes, yeah, he has to key everything in before he get out of the car. I know that. He gets out of the car and he goes, what's going on? I said, I'm not drunk. I said, my back went out. I said, it's spasming. I can't control my feet. It's really bad. I've been standing too long. I'm in that yard sale over there. And I said, I was just standing gabbing too long. And I didn't realize, you know, I'm getting older. And I pushed my limits of my body. And I didn't sit down. There's benches. There used to be benches in that neighborhood. They took them out because they don't want the homeless. So he goes, well, you want me to call an ambulance? I said, no. I said, can you give me transportation? He goes, I said, all of a sudden another police car comes up, or state trooper car comes up. I said, oh, maybe he can help me. He goes, that's my supervisor. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna beg. I'm gonna beg for a ride home. It's only a few blocks, but it's over. It's a mile. So I said I live right over there. So the supervisor gets out and he goes, "What's going on?" I said, I have the Harry when Harry Met Sally DVD in my hand. I said I went to a yard sale. I bought this DVD. I said on the way back, I said my back's spasming. I can barely control my feet. And he goes, "Oh," I said, I'm requesting transportation. I don't know if you do it here, but in New Jersey they would. But if you kept doing it, they keep track of you asking for transportation. In emergency, they would take you somewhere. So he goes, he's thinking it over. They go over to the side away from me. They're looking back and forth. And I said, look, I said, I own a house. I said, I know I look homeless. I have my sneakers on just in case it rains again. I got my bad sneakers on. So anyway, he goes, okay, we can do it. So now the young cop has to clean the car out in order to have a place for me to sit. He's got they have all this new equipment they have. Some of it is portable, some of it isn't. I think one of it's a defibrillator or whatever. So he gets up, and I got in the car. As soon as I got in the car and sat in the seat, my back stopped spasming. I was like, oh, good, you know. So he drove me home, and he had to do all kinds of online paperwork, you know, on the computer, and then he had to confirm who I was, and it was pretty funny. But he drove me home. He drove the car up into the driveway, which is steep. And he goes, I'll stay here until you get out and get in the house. I said, oh, thanks a lot. You know, I thanked him for his service and the whole thing. He was a good kid. And as soon as I got inside the house, I felt a lot better. And I put something on to eat and the whole thing. But, you know, when your back goes out, normally you have a car or you can find a place to sit. There's no places to sit down in Lancaster hardly anymore. They're having problems with homeless people, so they take the benches out. So I'm walking along, and the best I can find is a curb on a road. I sit on the curb, and if you do that, the police. I told you one of the other videos. The police, they stop and ask me if I'm okay, because I look old. It's so funny. I said I'm not drunk, and the supervisor goes, I seen you hanging onto that fence. I said, I'm trying to straighten up. I said, it's really bad. It's like, when it starts spasming, it pounds. And then that messes up your coordination in your legs. And, so I got home, I looked at, I was standing for 4 hours, walking a little bit, talking to people. And I realized I always had this problem where my back would hurt a little bit. This time it got me. And I didn't go home soon enough. But I got greedy when I found that When Harry Met Sally movie. And in other houses, this guy had so many CDs, movie DVDs, and he had them all categorized. But every one that was in there, I had seen the movie before. And some movies, you watch it once, you know how it ends, the whole thing. It's not really that funny. The acting's not really that great. And I was looking for like another movie equal When Harry Met Sally, you know. So I got home, I laid down, I cooked, I laid down, and the back is it's funky, but no worse than it's ever been before. But when you hurt your back, try to walk a couple miles. Just try it at 73 years old. And I'm thinking to myself, I can make this. And then a part of me is saying, you're not going to make it. This is the worst you've ever had your back hurt. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're just going to do more damage. The voices in your head, you're going to do more damage. But as soon as I sat in that cop car and relieved the pressure, because the seats are really nice in modern cars, and I got out of the car. He helped me get out. I got out, and I was like, I'm good, man. This is real good. Because I said, let me just put my pressure on my legs and my feet. And I said, no, I'm good. And went in the house, and he took off. Like I said, I thanked him for his service. But he was laughing, and then he's a runner. And I said, did you ever have your back go out? He goes, oh, yeah. I said, but your car was nearby. He goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, I don't have a car. So when my back went out, my option is to walk home. And in his case, when he went out running, his back went. He just walked slowly to the car, sat in the car for a while to where he could lift his legs and work the brake and the gas, and then come back home, and then probably call the next day and work and take off until the back was felt a lot better. But yeah, I've hurt my back before. It's no big business. It was so funny. I know I'm a mile from my house, and I could blow that mile a year ago like it was nothing. I mean nothing. But the one funny thing about standing there, I thought about the traffic once on this other. It's the same road on the other side of the highway, where I had to figure out where all these cars are coming from early in the morning, and it's from the school. But now it's a Saturday, and that highway, or that street, when you go to cross it, there might be a car coming, but they were like bumper to bumper locked in both directions, and I'm like, this is the wrong time for this to happen. And then across there is PennDOT, and they have this big fence up now, and they put vinyl. They wove that vinyl in there. It looks nice. But if you try to grab that fence to steady you, and there's also that property's on an angle. So I'm looking to go up to the end of PennDOT, and I'm thinking it's going to take me a few minutes. And there was a bench, it's gone. And then the property has like a wall, a brick wall, and I was hoping to make it to there and sit there for a few minutes until I crossed the highway. But I didn't make it that far. The one cop saw me, and I flagged him in. I'm like, you know what? But I was hoping it wasn't one of the cops that have stopped me in the past. They didn't like the way I was crossing the highway. And, I told them I was crossing it in a way that I felt safer. Now, I've been using the light, and there's a couple tricks to that. There's right-hand turn guys that do right-hand turn, even though the light is telling them not to, but they still make the turn. So I caught that. That's what, years ago, why I didn't use the light, because they can't turn on the right when I push the button, but they still do. And I'm like, where are these cars all of a sudden just appearing on me when I'm trying to cross the highway. And the highway's 4 lanes across in that spot. It takes me a while to get across it. And it's just so funny. And then when I come back home, I rested and I went over to tell my neighbors. They didn't even see the state trooper come up. And I was talking to them. And the woman's asking me, do I want some DVDs? She's got some and some VHS from her sister. She's cleaning out her house. I guess the sister's going to go in an old age home. And I told her, I said, yeah, I was giving the woman on the corner all these DVDs. And she was supposed to loan them to people, give them to people, maybe give them back to me. She just hoarded them. So now she just died. And she was 56. And she dies, and then someone asked me, do I want all those movies? She's a hoarder. They found them all in her house. But she was supposed to watch it and then pass it on. She didn't do any of that. She was just hoarding them. You know, I gave her, oh, thanks a lot. She never put them on, never used them. I tell you, there's people out there that do that. They want stuff just to want it, and they don't ever use it. They put it away. They don't even remember they have it. And they're out there. But I just want to tell you what I go through. But I like yard sales. And these neighborhoods, I know people. Now, you say, well, it's a yard sale. No, I went last night to a yard sale somewhere else. And they were having the yard sale today. Now, that yard sale over, it would be America Way off of Stroudsburg Pike. It's a neighborhood back in there. And every time I go there on a Saturday, they always tell me, oh, it was really busy last night. So I went last night, and it started to rain, and only three people were out there selling. So I don't know how they did today, but here I go on one. They said Friday's our big night, our big day in the yard sale, from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. And I went there, and there was only three. And I know those people over there because that's one of the neighborhoods I walk in. And I got to hang. They know me. You know, it's like, hey, yeah, you're the guy who walks every morning. I always wave. Sometimes some people will actually stand before going to work. They'll stand there and talk to me. And I stand there, but I pushed it there. I came out of that yard sale, and I was going in the park in Flory Park. There's two halves to it, and there was this kid. He's Amish, and I hung out with him. He's from another town, and I was kidding him at first. His last name's Lapp, and I told him about Manny Lapp, who quit being Amish so he could become an electrician, start a company. And he knew that. There was an uncle or something. But I hung out with him, and he had an electric bike, and I was teasing him. He says, well, he didn't join yet. And he says, I don't think I'm going to join. He says, I read the Bible. I go to church. But he said he wasn't going to. I warned him about this. He had told me about this new cult that's coming through the Amish area, where they go back to the past even more. And I warned him. I said, that sounds like a cult. I said, the guy's going to control you by adding new rules, and the rules aren't in the Bible. You know, we talked for like 2 hours, and I'm standing there, and I had standing so many hours there with him, standing in the yard sale there, doing the toenails this morning. I pushed myself, you know. Certain times I know I'm old, but there's certain times you don't feel that old, and you make mistakes, and that's one of the things that happens to you. But I'm looking at the bottom of this radio, and somebody really, I mean, he rewired this radio, put new capacitors in. He did a really nice job. It's too bad he screwed up the dial mechanism, which I showed you that on the video. He had the washer in the wrong place, and then the antenna trim was shorted on the radio. That was the other thing. You know, with that shorted, you might not be able to find that, because that's across the coil. And if you put your ohm meter there, you can't. I just know that antenna trim on the Nationals goes bad. And, you know, I put my ohm meter on there. I disconnected it from the coil, and I put my ohm meter on. It was dead shorted. And as you turn it, the resistance changes because it's not silver mica. It got hit. And I couldn't fix that. You saw the whole thing. I actually found a replacement and did it on this model. I think that's it. But I want to tell you, you know, I've switched off the radios. I just putting this one back together. And my other thing is watching videos, going and finding the videos at yard sales. and I got myself into trouble. It's so funny. But that morning, you had to see me that morning. That it's pitch dark out. I'm walking through I won't say a forest. I'm walking through what was a forest, but they took all the trees down, so the homeless wouldn't live in there. And I'm walking across that, and then you come down a steep incline, and there's a tree, and the tree branches or the roots form steps. Well, I hit one, and the step disappeared under my feet, and it was the mud is real slippery here. There's no stone in it, and I fell. And then I'm like, did I break anything? And it's still dark. No one's going to see me there. It'll be a couple hours before someone comes through there. But today, when I was having trouble and I was hanging on the fence, there was a couple of people that saw me, and then the one guy crossed the street, but then he crossed back, and he said to me, "What's going on?" I said, "My back." He says, "Oh," he just smiled. He knew all about it. But yeah, I thought I was going to make it home, but and I'm like, they said we'll call an ambulance for him. Like, an ambulance. I do pay an ambulance service, but you're still sometimes you have to pay some money, and then they take you in, you get checked out, and then you gotta use money to come back home by cab. And I'm thinking, let me use because my friends were cops, and they used to say, ask for transport. And I said, I don't know if you have it here, but do you ever do emergency transport? And the supervisor called it in, and they said, yeah, you could do it because they're state troopers. They really aren't supposed to like come off the highway and go into my neighborhood, but they did. They saved me some money. Hopefully I'm good. But like I said, I had to get that toenail this morning, and as you get older, it's hard to reach your toenails. And usually I hurt my hip and my knee when I'm doing the toenails. It's tough when you get older. Oh, and the toenails are unbelievably hard to cut. The big toe, I was able to. I used those real cheap ones, nail clippers. They're actual nail clippers. I use that, cut, and then I have a big file for metal, and I file the toenail down, and then I do that. But I bought these special cutters on the internet. I can squeeze the handles totally closed, and the jaws, they will not cut my toenails. Super heavy duty. It'll cut no, it won't. It won't cut my nails. I think that's it. All right, that's it. I'm backing up here. That back don't feel too bad.